Welcome to the Farm to School panel. This panel was organized by the South Dakota Farm to School Network, which is a work group of the South Dakota Local Foods Coalition. So one of the projects of the coalition was to put on this event, and another one is working on building farm to school in the state through that network. So we're also very grateful for our panelists today, bringing an array of knowledge to answer questions you might have about starting to sell to schools, or maybe you're a community member who wants to bring it to your community and are curious about what questions might arise. Also, on a side note, in your bag, you all should have gotten a flyer about an upcoming event called Bringing the Farm to School. There'll be one training in January in Brookings and another in February in Rapid City. It's a 2-day training designed for producers to help you prepare for forming that connection with a school and selling. Whether you're meat, vegetable, produce, any producers are encouraged to look into that. And registration should be opening any day on the Extension website. So today we are delighted to have 5 individuals here to share their knowledge and experience with us. I encourage you to jot down questions that you might have for questions or Q&A time at the end. So with that, can you each please introduce yourself and give a brief overview of your involvement with Farm to School?
I'm Lynn Dunker. I'm with the Wall School District. We have a fairly small community. Our school is about 250 students I feed every day, about 275 student body. And we started Beef to School in 2019, right before COVID hit. So we're still kind of in the sustainability portion of it. And I'm the food service director there.
Thanks, Lynn. My name is Ken Charfauros. I'm with Wall Meats. The other half of Wall Meats is actually in front, Janet. Our involvement in Beef to School or Farm to School is providing beef protein to our local schools such as Lynn and 18 other schools. So we're excited to be part of this network. So thank you for the invite.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Ramsdell, and I'm the food service director for Meade School District. We're a little bit larger district, about just over 3,000 students. And so we have been doing produce to school for 2 years now with help from the Black Hills Farmers Market. And I only wish we had a longer overlap season for produce. We only can buy for about a month, maybe September, a little bit in October. For Beef to School, we put out our first RFP right before COVID, so you can guess how that went. So then we just kind of tabled things for a while, and now we're back. Last year we bought hamburger patties locally, and this year we will be doing more beef purchases, probably some roasts and ground beef.
Great. So I am Cindy Tolle, and I run a couple different things. One is Evergreen Specialty Foods, which is basically a food hub to make it easy for chefs or schools, in this case, chefs at schools, to purchase local and regional foods. So we carry not only meats, but vegetables and honey and wheat or whatever. So we aggregate items from producers and get it into these institutions. I also own Sturgis Meats here in Sturgis. We're a USDA certified organic meat processor. And we currently service 47 schools throughout Montana, Nebraska, Wyoming, and South Dakota. So we do farm to school and have for, when I took it over, they had a very big program already. So I just added a few more schools in the last 2 years since I've owned it. And then with Evergreen Specialty Foods, our aggregation program, we serve 22 universities in 10 different states and 87 medical facilities. So that's aggregating producers to the consumer.
I'm Kyle Cox with Cox's Farm Stand, about 25 miles north of here, and I'm a member of the Black Hills Farmers Market, and so we supply produce to Rhonda with the Meade County School District and Youth and Family Services in Rapid City and that kind of stuff. We did sweet corn this year, and we did peaches and watermelon, I think, and I hope to continue.
Thanks. So our first question for the panel is, from your perspective, what advice do you have for someone wanting to bring farm to school to their community?
From a food service director perspective, it would be talk to your lunch ladies, get them on board. Talk to them about the recipes, how they could implement the local beef into their menus that already exist. Because anybody that has kids in school knows that USDA has a lot of guidelines that we have to follow. So incorporating that beef in already existing recipes is going to be fundamentally good for our program. And so that's where I would start those conversations.
Thanks, Lynn. I think that's exactly right. What we do is we work closely with our school lunch programs that are those schools that are working with us, and that's pretty enjoyable to do. We get to learn what different schools use as recipe guidance, and we work towards that as a meat processor and provide that protein. For example, if Lynn does 90-10, New Underwood does 80-20. For my guys, they work at that, and they get better at their craft trying to get there just by looking sometimes, or picking the right animal to slaughter for Lynn or New Underwood. So that perspective is what we have at the plant.
I would say that if you're a parent or a community member who wants to get beef or produce, more local purchases in your school, really it's like these two have already said, it's all about relationships. And so if you go in offering to help rather than demanding, that's helpful, because we're all just learning this. And there are regulations to follow, and there are menu patterns, meal patterns, and so there is a lot of work to do, but I can tell you that most of the people I talk with already want to do this. So if you go in willing to help and willing to be supportive, I would say that's the most important thing you could do.
So from a producer side and a meat processor side, I think one of the most important things for us is to make it easy for folks like Rhonda. Like last year, she purchased all of her ground beef from us, just to make it easy for them to acquire, the product and make sure that we, provide what they need. And as far as like working with other producers to aggregate producers to get stuff into school programs, making sure that everything's the same price and everything is, pretty uniform, same quality, that type of thing. But the whole goal is to make it easy for the chefs in the schools preparing the food and the administrators that are purchasing it.
Yeah, as a producer, as a vegetable producer, is be ready, because you have a month of doing it, of selling to a school district. So you got to be ready, and then start the conversation early. Plan ahead that you're going to have excess produce, and let them know that, hey, next week I might have this available. If you're interested, let us know, and we can get it there. And I don't know, just plan. And maybe ask them to apply for grants to pay for some of the stuff to get it started in their school districts. I know there's stuff available through USDA on that, and so maybe a good way to get started.
So relationships were brought up a little bit in the first question. So adding on to that, what partnerships have been critical for farm to school in your community?
Well, I think all of the partnerships I have are pretty critical, but coming from an ag background, I grew up on a farm ranch up at Milesville. I don't know how many of you guys would know where that is, in the middle of nowhere. So it was, so it was pretty important to me that while we're running a pilot program, that we also focus on sustainability, not only for our school, but for the ag producer too. And of course, none of the ranchers that come and say, we want to help promote beef to school and we want to serve it to our kids, they're not looking to get rich, but we also don't want them to take a hit helping us do it either. So just keeping that communication open and forming those relationships and saying, I know I've had conversations with Ken, he's got 18 schools. He's not getting rich. It's comes down to they feel it's the right thing to do. They want us to be serving it to our kids, and that's kind of what gets everybody on board, and just all having that common goal just keeps the conversation going.
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, that's correct for us as well. It's the relationship with our school lunch person, and then of course the producers that want to do the right thing and join this movement with us. So we still buy beef if there's no donated track going. So we have producers that are on tap to just bring in beef when we can't find or can't get a donated beef for that certain school. So we purchase that, and then of course we process it to our schools that need it. So that relationship is vital for the school, the kids, ourselves, and the economy. It's just the cold cows that we buy predominantly has to go somewhere. So we make sure that it's the right protein for the right school. That's very, very important.
We work with Black Hills Farmers Market and have for the last couple of years. They have a wholesale wholesale hub on their website. And so we use that to help us buy produce. We also buy some from independent producers. But the Black Hills Farmers Market is one that's been instrumental for us getting started with our produce. And then also I have to shout out to Michelle there just for a second, because she had the patience to meet with me a couple of years ago and just teach me what GAP was and things like that. I didn't even know the language. So she helped me so that I could have better conversations with producers like yourselves. Also, as far as the beef to school, I've worked with Cindy, and she's been helpful. And I have quite a few ranchers in my district here in Meade County, and quite a few are actually on our school board, so they've been helpful too. So really, I can't say there isn't a relationship that hasn't helped us with our local purchases. A lot of people have been involved in that.
No, I would concur. Nothing really more to add, except for we all know how important it is for those young bodies to have really good, nutrient-rich food. And so whatever we can do to promote that, I'm in. I'm good. Yeah, Kyle's good. Thank you.
So the next one could be a fun question. What are some lessons that you've learned along the way to make farm to school more successful?
Well, like I said, we kind of had a little bit of a lull during COVID. We missed that last 9 weeks of school, so our beef to school carried over, and so last year was the first full year of sustainability for me, and looking at that and how we can make it continue to work for not only smaller schools but bigger schools is where I've turned my focus to, is getting those USDA entitlement dollars ready to use at the local level. Right now, they won't allow us to do that. Before beef to school, my ground beef came in through my entitlement dollars. And so once I didn't have the beef that, to get for my entitlement dollars, I switched that all over to the fresh fruit and vegetable program. If I could use those entitlement dollars in my local community purchasing local beef, I think that that's economically a responsible way for my school to use it. It's a healthy way, for our students to be eating. And so that's kind of where I'm going to switch my focus to now that I have it in the school. So entitlement dollars they're like commodity dollars. If you hear like brown box items, that's like our commodity canned fruits we get in, canned vegetables, things like that, or frozen vegetables. Brown box items like beef, processed turkey slices or turkey roast, anything like that. A portion of those entitlement dollars we can take each year. Each district has their allotted amount. You can take a portion of your entitlement dollars and switch that over to the DOD, which is Department of Defense, into their fresh fruits and vegetable program. So it gets a little confusing, I know, but it still runs through the Department of Defense because that's where our food school lunch program started, was back in the day when kids were signing up right out of school to go to war. They were malnourished. So that's what caused the start of the school nutrition program in the first place, was the Department of Defense. So our fresh fruits and vegetables all still go through there. So if I could take that, not that it's not a worthy program, but I would rather still be using my entitlement dollars for beef. So
some of the lessons learned for Wall Meats, anyways. There's a lot. We did the prototype season, and it made a lot of exercise or homework I had to do to get to what Lynn needed, because it started out at Wall, was the fat to protein content, nutritional value that I had to meet or show Lynn I had to do. The first exercise was, can you make a quarter-pound patty cooked at 165 and still be a quarter-pound patty? I said, Lynn, that's almost impossible. And of course, we did it in the first try, and that's because we picked the right leanness. And as we're just not cutters. We've grown to knowing what we do and how we do it. We also pick now which beef to provide to which school. We don't just take a fat beef and put it, try and get it to lean beef. That's really a lot of work. So we work with 67 producers, and we call out, or we do the same thing that Lynn does. We ask for an RFI, and then of course they come back with, hey, I got this many coal cows. How many do you need? I said, well, how old are they, and are they, even grain fed? Or because I need leanness, or I need fat beef. We've learned a lot in this last 3 years on how to pick the right beef for the right school. And we also test every product that goes out to the school is tested through SDSU's lab. And it's not a requirement for us to do that. We just want to make sure that those kiddos have the right stuff, that there is not any one drop of E. coli in that whole mix that goes to our kiddos. And we're very proud of that. And so a lot of lessons that we've learned. I can go on all day just to see how, to tell you how good my processes are getting to be just because of this program. This is not a money maker, but it makes us smarter and makes us more dedicated to ag. So that's a lesson learned.
Well, I think one of the most important lessons I've learned over the last couple of years is to keep purchasing as simple as possible. In school lunch programs, we have to follow federal procurement guidelines, and so depending on how much money we're spending and where we're spending it and what we're doing with it, we have to follow different procurement rules. And so I'm not going to give you a procurement webinar today, but what I found out was that we can use our simplest procurement method, which we call the micro purchases method, which is up to $10,000, so that's not really micro to me, but that's what they call it. So we can use that method to buy local purchases. And once that opened up, to me, that made everything a lot simpler because there are no contracts involved, there are no bids involved. It is just simply, as long as we spread the business around and the price is reasonable and we document everything, we can buy it. And so that's been the biggest eye-opener and the biggest weight off my shoulders when it comes to local purchases.
We always learn lessons. We learn them every day. But as far as food, providing food to schools, I think one of the things that I've learned along the journey of doing this is that you're not just providing food to the students. You're providing them an opportunity to understand about where their food came from, and that educational piece is really critical. So on some of our projects, like down, especially in New Mexico, we work very closely with the extension folks down in New Mexico that, provide our meat into their schools, and they educate the kids about where the food came from and why it's so critical to them. So to me, that was a really important next step as far as, learning that was really a critical part of supplying food to schools.
Lesson learned as a producer, be flexible. It's not, if they can't do it right at that time or come pick up at that time, maybe you got to go take it to them or something like that. It's not just, and have open communication with the producer and the buyer and make sure that you're good to go on that. And plan in the off season. That's what I'll just say. Plan the off season for your extra produce if you have it, and where you want to try to get it to.
What changes would make farm to school easier for you and others in your role?
If USDA procurement rules magically disappeared, that would be wonderful. And again, like I said, I already touched on just being able to use those USDA dollars we get every year at the local level for the quality that we get. That would be my dream.
As a processor, we're working through how to make it easier. I dedicate 2 months out of the year, one for preschool, pre-opener, and of course the first semester, the beginning of the second semester actually, which is December. So we're making it easier for our producers to program when we're going to want some beef to school product, protein to be scheduled. The scheduling for me is a nightmare now. I'm way into December of next year, and I just can't, I don't have the space anymore. So it's, to make it easier is just trying to schedule smartly as a processor working closely with our producers, trying to meet those goals with those schools that need product. As Lynn mentioned earlier, some of the overflow that came from COVID or, some overscheduling. So we make those opportunities in between, but the goal is to make it easier for them to remember that August is school start, so we need to start getting beef in by July to get it to the schools. That's what's easier for us as processors. Other than that, we work hard to get protein through our flow, as we call it.
I think one of the challenges that we've run across that would make things a lot easier would be if I think if producers understood a little more that we are trying to be easy to work with, and I think we're getting easier to work with as schools. I really think we are. We've been working on that internally and with the state agency, and just making it easier to meet the requirements that it takes to sell to a school. So I go to the farmer's market, I try to talk with the producers a little bit and say, this is really all there is. All we require for produce purchases is that they use good agricultural practices, and we don't even require GAP certification. We just have a questionnaire that people can fill out. So we've tried to make that simple, but above all, I've got to make sure that what I buy for my students is safe. That's everyone's main concern, is to make sure that we aren't serving anything that isn't safe. But once I'm assured that someone's using good practices, I'm excited to buy from them. So I guess to put that in a nutshell, I want to talk with more producers, and I want more producers to feel free to call up and ask, what does it take? What do I need to do? I'm happy to buy the coffee. We can talk about that. So. Thanks.
One of the things that I think moving forward, we're going to see a lot more money trickling down to the local level for food procurement through USDA in the form of grants. I know that. So I think one of the things that would make things a lot easier for everybody is really starting to work more with these districts in terms of helping acquire some of this funding to make it easier to procure local foods. And I think as part of the South Dakota Specialty Producers, aggregation and supply, getting food into local systems like the school systems. That's a priority of ours this coming year. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to for this season.
Yeah, I think what changes would make it easier, it would be, I don't know, making it easier for who you're selling it to would be the way to make it easier for all the way around, but you're making it hard on yourself at the same time. So, I don't know. That's about it. Yeah, collaborating and making sure it all works.
For everybody.
All right, I have one final question for the panel, and then we'll open it up. So be brainstorming what you'd like to pick their brains on. What do you love about Farm to School?
I love the quality of the freshness of the product that I get. I love the education piece of it. We have our FFA group in Wall that takes it and runs with the education piece of it. They have their own worksheets. They go into the elementary level, educate them about where the different cuts come from, and not only, pasture to plate, but how that beef is processed. And so it's really fun to watch the older kids go in and educate the younger kids about that. So I really enjoy that part too.
Oh, I don't know what there isn't to love about this thing. It's a great product. I get calls. Even this morning, I got a call about beef to school, and it just happens to be East River, and now they're starting out on that side. But it's a fun program. It's very rewarding. I go to the school of Wall, and they call me the meat guy, and they all smile and they're high-fiving me down the hallway. And our lunch program is so much better now, and so that protein is exciting. And you just walk in the streets that people just have that wherewithal that this is the right thing to do for our community, not just economically, but for those kiddos that are growing that need that protein. I'm in. I've been in for three and a half years in this program. It started with Amy Pravacek, and oh my God, it hasn't stopped. It's just growing and growing. In about 2 weeks, we'll go from 18 to 24 schools, just in West River, just by Wall Meats. So we're very proud to be part of this program. And again, what is it there to like about this? It's amazing.
It is really rewarding and fun to watch a school full of children whose teeth are falling out eat corn off the cob. I really enjoy educating our students about where this came from. When we put something on our salad bar or on our food bar that's local, we always put up a sign that says where it came from and who grew it. These are tomatoes from Darrell, and this is corn from Cox's, and the kids get excited. We're an agricultural community, and so they know these names, and so they get excited about where this came from. So that's one of my favorite things, is educating the kids.
I actually have two things. One is being able to provide nutrient-dense food to young developing bodies. That's a mission of mine, to provide good quality food. And the other thing that I really like is I really like disrupting kind of the standard Cisco and U.S. foods. I think it's those are companies that, in my opinion, are really profit-driven, and they don't really care about the quality of the food that they provide. And I think anything we can do to disrupt the standard system is awesome.
What do I like about the Farm to School is I like the social media posts that Rhonda does and the YFS does, and gives out huge shout out to us, and have a whole bunch of smiling kids with your produce. Probably nothing better.
Thank you. All right. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. I can be mobile. Okay, so you can either shout out your question. I know we're kind of in a large space, or I can bring the microphone to you. Who has a question? In the back. Do you feel loud, or do you want the mic?
Greatest obstacle?
What was your greatest obstacle to get into the school district? So if that's a relevant question that you can answer, please give us your thoughts.
Ours was just for the producers doing the vegetables. Ours was probably just getting the meeting and doing it that way. And the way that we overcame that obstacle was our farmers market created a wholesale division, a part of it, and allowed larger institutions or resellers or schools to order directly from the producers through the farmers market.
You know, for us, there wasn't really much of an obstacle once we figured out how to provide schools the format they need for their recipe formulation. I think talking to the school board was probably my biggest learning for them, to give them some confidence that this is really possible. But that's really it. Other than that, I have to hold some schools back. So there's really no obstacle. You just have to get the school to be on board with it.
I can't think of any real major obstacles. I mean, our packing facility is a USDA regulated facility, so we already know and all these regulations, and we're used to having all these regulations. So that really, I would say, not knowing that would have been a huge obstacle. But we already do that anyway, so.
The question was, is Beef to Schools a national program or something that started in South Dakota?
It actually came to Wall School out of an article that happened in Nebraska. They had started, and there had been one pilot program in one of the southern counties with bison prior to that, but nothing that had really was sustainable in any district in South Dakota. So Wall School District, and I believe it was Burke. We did our pilot programs the same semester, and so yeah, we were the first in South Dakota. But when I was out in DC in the spring of 2019 for a conference, I found out there that it was in Montana, Nebraska, Wyoming, as far west as Idaho. So there are a lot of districts throughout the Midwest and West that it is catching on.
Yeah, there's actually a board now for a committee, a national committee that's working the Beef to School program. North Dakota took it right from us, and they're now into almost sustainment, but they're in prototype with the program we're using, our format. So it's becoming national. So yeah, good question. I know that DC came in and asked those questions, and how did we do it? And the DC being, the senators personally came in and asked what Lynn and I were doing, and they took it back and started to spread the word. But we actually are doing it different from most states. We come from the bottom up, and now other states are coming from the top down. So it's happening. It's getting some traction. Yes, ma'am.
So you said that you're in the schools and kind of teach them, as far as like the cuts and all that. So do you have curriculum that you share with other schools? So like if you had a district where we wanted to introduce that, you could say, hey, they're doing it over here, so why aren't we catching up to that?
Absolutely. There's the thing I like about Beef to School is that if your district is going to start it or looking at starting it, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our FFA teacher, who is not there anymore, but she developed curriculum, worksheets, different things, got posters to hang in our lunchroom of the different cuts, stuff like that. They're willing to share all of that. It's not secret information. It's something that is going to benefit any student in any school, and that's what we want. So yeah, go ahead and look me up and I can hook you up with some stuff.
That national coalition is FTE. It's Farm to Education. That's that coalition we're part of. So it's gaining a lot of traction. Lynn and I are part of that committee. So, anyways, go ahead.
Okay, so as
Well, right now I can't do anything with it. It costs me $5 to salt it, and to buy it from me is $5, but that's not even including labor. So we're hoping that somebody will come back up online. We used to sell all the hides to reuse or to repurpose, but currently there's not a market out there that has reached out to us. You want to do hides? I need somebody to come get them. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk after. I want to talk to you.
I was listening to the recording. The discussion in question was on how the hides are used, and it looks like they might be coming up with something.
Well,
Who else has a question?
Can I add something? All of our hides go to timberland to make boots. So every single hide that we pull off goes to timberland, and all of our bison hides go to make. They get tanned to make drums.
Fantastic. All right, what are the questions?
Since I'm up at the front of the room, I first of all want to commend everybody that's up here, the producers, the processors, the school people as well too. 15 years ago when we looked at this, nobody was doing it. There was a lot of resistance on every front to do this. The producers, yeah, they wanted to sell. Processors kind of wanted to do this, but there was always something that they didn't want to face, right? So I really credit everybody that's up here for doing what it took to take the next step to do what this takes. The question is, though, what is the single next step that you want to see happen? I think we already have the questions like, well, USDA needs to abolish the rules, right? but what's the single next best step?
Well, like I say, from a food service director point of view, it would be, letting us use those entitlement dollars at our local level. And I really think that that's a feasible ask. Is it a dream to get rid of procurement? Sure. Or the guidelines. In a perfect world, yeah. But I really think that using those dollars at the local level, putting it back into our local economy, to feed our kids quality beef, I think that that's a reasonable ask from the USDA, and I think we'll see it. She, touched on the grants and stuff that have been coming out, and we'll see more of those too, and that's just kind of paving the way, I hope, for conversations.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's time to help our producers back out again. There's a donated track we use, and then there's a purchasing track we also use. But I think the donated also needs to be recognized with at least some replacement dollars for those. That's the next step for us. I'm just hoping that somebody up above us starts to realize that we do need some compensation to our producers.
I would say that education is a really important piece here because in looking at produce and proteins in schools, we really need to get the word out to both the school buyers and the producers and everybody in between that this can be done in a simple way. It can be done, and so we need to mentor one another and teach one another and have the conversations with the people in the schools, the producers, the people in the food hubs, the farmers markets, anybody else that can get involved and is interested in this. Education is the key, and confidence. Mm-hmm.
I concur with everything that you guys said. I mean, nothing really new.
Yeah, and also aggregation so that you can supply more than just a local 50 miles, trying to get more produce. You only have a month or month and a half of produce. That's, a lot of produce at that time, and just trying to get it all over, I guess.
We just need everybody in this room, all you vegetable growers, to grow year round.
And the question was, what is the future for other proteins besides beef in the schools?
Some of the things that I've heard is, eggs at the local level. There's supposed to be somebody West River that's working on getting USDA working with their eggs. There's been people East River talking to the colonies about chickens and different products. Of course, when they come in, they aren't going to be processed like what a lot of the schools serve your chicken nuggets, or it'll be a unbreaded, boneless, skinless chicken breast versus your chicken patty. Differences that are happening there. There's also been conversations about pork, a lot of pork products and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of buzz happening with different proteins. I haven't seen any of it yet, but I think conversations are how it starts.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I don't think I can add to anything, but it is being talked about.
Yeah, all I would add is that we are looking at some pork purchases this year as well. There is a learning curve as far as having our cooks work with raw meat, and we have operating procedures for that in our district, but we don't have it for raw chicken, and raw chicken is very difficult. I mean, if we were to get whole raw chickens in, it would be a lot of training for some of my staff. But we've gotten pretty good with beef now, and pork is similar to cook, so that would be where we would go next.
We have a lot of Wyoming schools and Montana schools that do pork, bison. So we've done a lot of tribal bison for schools. So, one thing that's cool about pork is the schools are having us render the pork lard, which I think is awesome. So they're going back to actually cooking with high quality pork.
The next question was, what about implementing goat and lamb?
I wish South Dakota were more of a lamb state. I wish more people ate lamb because lamb is awesome. We've had some schools that do lamb stew meat. They, make lamb dishes, chislic, that type of thing too. But I haven't had anything else beyond that. But it would be great to have goats and lamb in.
I'm throwing another question out while you guys can all brainstorm a little bit. While working with specialty crop producers, especially like fruits and vegetables, one limitation is that between the school and the producer, it sounds like preparing the, say taking an apple, and that the producer can't sell you halved apples and cut up apples, and that's something that you guys then have a little bit extra work on. Can you describe a little bit on that obstacle, but then how community members and how schools can work to make that less of an issue?
You're right. We have to purchase things that are whole. And what we've done in our district is we've bought some equipment that makes it easier for our staff, and we've done a lot of training. So we've bought slicers and choppers and all the Vegematic things you can think of that are commercially available. And we've trained our staff with that. So some of that is equipment grants, which are available now through the state for schools, and just educating ourselves as to what equipment is out there and how to use it. So,
Is there a beef-o-matic? No, I'm sorry.
She's good.
I said, is this a movement for smaller school districts? Maybe, I don't know much about it. Is it a volume issue that you couldn't scale it up to address a larger school district? That being said, would you have any advice for a larger school district hoping to at least start some kind of piece of this?
That's usually the one thing I say is that I can only speak to what works in my district and my size. I've never worked in one of those larger districts. I do know, like, when I write my bid, I don't have the freezer space for all of the beef that I'm gonna use throughout the year. I have it delivered in increments. That may be something a larger district could look at. I'll put Rhonda on. She's much larger than I am, but I know that there's schools, Brookings, Sioux Falls. They're talking about starting small at least and choosing a couple of sites that they'll implement it in, and then going from there to see how it turns out.
You'll be glad to hear probably there are some larger schools getting into farm to school. I know Rapid City area schools has dipped their toes in this year. They've bought some produce, and I don't know what they're doing yet with beef, but using this micro purchase method that I described earlier means that we can buy even small amounts of things and try it in one school, or just put it on salad bars, or we can buy small amounts of beef and use it in one school or another, rather than having to look at our entire aggregate purchases of beef. You know, when I put out my first RFP and I said I need 18,000 servings of hamburger patties, nobody answered me. So I think that can get a little overwhelming. And so when the state has finally given their blessing to let us use micro purchases and do smaller purchases and try it out here and there, I think they really opened up the floodgates for larger schools as well.
Are you going to go, Ken?
Okay.
I was going to say, from a processing perspective, I don't think there's a volume issue. I mean, I know I'm certainly capable of providing, whatever beef to a large school. I mean, we do 3 beef per big institution every week. So I don't think it's that. I think it's more of a,
I think some of the bigger,
logistical.
some of the bigger schools are probably doing pre-cooked stuff and don't have the cookers that used to be out there. That's out in the rural school districts. So that's what I've been asked. Do you do pre-cooked stuff? I don't yet. The new meat plant we're building will. And so I don't know if that answers your questions. I mean, it isn't a volume issue. I did 30,000 pounds of ground beef last year just for schools. That's a lot for a tiny plant.
Did that answer your question? Okay.
I think it's.
Any other questions that are coming to mind? All right, would you guys each like to go through and say any final thoughts?
I just encourage you guys all to reach out, ask questions, find an avenue. If you have a student or anybody that you think would benefit from beef to school, reach out. Like I say, the education piece of it, reach out to me, we'll share.
Excellent. At the state level processing, we'll help you if you find a processor that's close by that wants to do it. It's not that difficult. You do this every day. You just don't know what you're doing as far as accounting, being accountable to the nutritional value side of things and fat to protein. It's easy. There's so many methods to do that with. We figured that out. It's not just one unique tester. You can even do it in a microwave if you have one of those. I know everybody have one of those, right? So it's a great program, you guys. If you get a chance to talk about it, this is amazing that what we do for our kiddos. Janet and I are all in and have been.
I just want to say that I think this is really our year to gain momentum. Something that will be coming down the pike for schools is more supply chain assistance funding. We did receive some last year. We used all of ours to buy beef, and that will be coming again this year. It doesn't look like it'll be it may be February before the schools actually get the money, and we can't spend it until we have it. But I just want you to be aware that that money is earmarked for unprocessed food, and it's earmarked. It's recommended that we use it for local purchases. So it's playing right into your hands if you're a producer. So now's the time. Thank you.
So, every school district is surrounded by processors and producers. And so, I think that and this is one of our big pushes this year with Kyle and I are both part of South Dakota Specialty Producers. One of the big things is to push aggregation so we can get those consumers in touch with the producers. And that's really important. But we have the infrastructure. We just have to tie it all together. And with all these procurement dollars coming down the pipeline and the focus on local foods, the time is now.
With produce, just make the conversation and get it done. It doesn't. You can make it easy, or make it as easy as you possibly can, and if you communicate with your food director. So.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. And our panelists' names are in your program, so if you have any questions, I think all of them will welcome you to reach out directly. With that, have a good evening, and hopefully we'll see many of you in the morning. But check out the gym before you leave and see if you can grab some snacks for the road.